Andor Season 2 fixed an awful Star Wars trend, and I couldn't be happier. One flawlessly executed character transition in Andor Season 2 broke a disappointing Star Wars trend after years of the problem not getting any better. Andor Season 2 is considered one of Star Wars' best TV shows, if not the single best, for a reason. This show managed to take a conflict that has been front and center since the very beginning of the franchise, the Empire versus the Rebels, and make it feel new, innovative, and captivating. There were a host of other ways Andor Season 2 proved to be one of the most impressive additions to Star Wars movies and TV shows too, including everything from the writing to the costuming to the character development. One relatively minor example of Andor's care and attention to detail is relatively easy to miss, but it may mean great news for Star Wars' future. Specifically, Andor Season 2 managed to resolve an issue with Star Wars characters that has been plaguing the franchise for quite some time. Star Wars movies and shows have long moved around in the Star Wars timeline, as was clear when the original Star Wars trilogy was followed up with the prequels and then, many years later, jumped forward in time to the sequels. As can be expected based on the flexibility Star Wars has had with its chronology, this has led to some character complications, as myriad characters have had to be recast as older or younger versions of themselves. Unfortunately, Star Wars has had issues over the years with these recasts, as well as with other approaches, such as de-aging. One of the most obvious examples of problems with recasting is ObiWan Kenobi. In the original trilogy, Alec Guinness played Obi-Wan, and when the prequels moved the story several decades back, the character was played by Ewan McGregor. This is in no way meant to discredit McGregor, who I think is a brilliant actor. However, it was difficult to see how McGregor's Obi-Wan could realistically turn into Guinness Obi-Wan, not only because of their differing appearances, but also because it would mean Obi-Wan aging rapidly between Star Wars, Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, and A New Hope. Some have tried to explain this away based on the idea that the harsh environment of Tatooine would advance one's aging, but that still seemed like a stretch. In fact, ObiWan Kenobi, which is set midway between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope, was the perfect time to bridge these two appearances. Unfortunately, ObiWan Kenobi ended with it still seeming unlikely that McGregor's Obi-Wan could look like Guinness in less than 10 years. Completely opposite to ObiWan Kenobi, Andor Season 2 seamlessly transitioned Mon Mothma into her appearance in the original Star Wars trilogy, even though she is played by a different actress. Throughout Andor, especially the first several episodes of Andor Season 2, Mon is shown as extremely glamorous, donning traditional Chandrilan clothing that is up there with Padmé Amidala's wardrobe. However, after her speech decrying the Empire and Palpatine before the Senate, Mon took on a physical appearance more appropriate for a rebel fighter. In addition to her clothing change, Mon's hair and makeup were entirely redone, bridging the differences between her early Andor Season 2 look and her eventual appearance in the original trilogy. What makes this particularly impressive is the fact that, like McGregor and Guinness, Mon was played by two different actors, decades apart. In Return of the Jedi, Mon Mothma was played by Caroline Blackiston, whereas Genevieve O'Reilly played her in Andor and several other Star Wars projects. This marks a major improvement on a previously disappointing Star Wars trend. While Mon Mothma's transition is just one example, I am sincerely hopeful this is a good sign for Star Wars' future. This franchise is far from done with characters who will move around in time, as Hayden Christensen's return in Andor Season 2 alone suggests we could be getting more Clone Wars flashbacks that would require de-aging. That is of course different from a recast, but it requires the same attention to detail and dedication to getting a character to look right. Even after time has passed in one way or another, it will be interesting to see how this plays out moving forward, especially because many are hoping that Andor has reset the bar for Star Wars in many ways, not just with its character appearances. Many movies and shows are currently underway in the franchise, so it is possible that Andor will have such an influence. For now, though, I'm just delighted that Mon Mothma's physical transition in Andor Season 2 broke this previously frustrating Star Wars trend.